So here's how infrastructure typically has worked in Illinois. We pass a capital bill every now and again. So I think the last one I want to say was 2009. That was supposed to last for 5 years, and here we are. And you can tell when you go look at the roads that we're driving on. So what should we do? Well, yeah, we should have a capital bill. Yes, having a capital bill would allow us to rebuild our broken infrastructure, would allow us to expand infrastructure where needed, would put people to work. But instead of having these bills be episodic and highly political in nature, there should be a continuous stream of funding for our capital expenditures. There should be a progressive source of revenue that does not punish the middle class and the working poor, that on a continuing basis allows for infrastructure investments. And then the question is, what do you do with it? And that decision-making process, of course, is going to be complicated because everyone's going to want the money, but there's a few basic principles that we should have. One is that we should make sure that the resources are distributed across the state in an equitable and fair way. The next, and this is really important, infrastructure spending is an important way to create jobs, and therefore, historically, infrastructure spending has happened in communities that most needed jobs. But the people who work on these jobs in the communities that most needed employment opportunities typically came from somewhere else, or at least way too often came from somewhere else. And by the way, way too often look different than the people look in the neighborhood that needs the jobs. There's a long history of majority African American neighborhoods that need employment badly, seeing infrastructure projects worked on by largely white workers. So we need not only to make sure that the projects are distributed equitably, but to make sure that people who are in need of work, who live in communities that are in need of opportunity, are put to work first. Next, we need to be forward-looking. Roads and bridges are great, but we need to talk about mass transit in a serious way. We need to talk about our water infrastructure in a serious way. That has been overlooked for so long, with public health consequences and environmental consequences that are severe. We need to be building out a universal broadband system across the state of Illinois to make sure that rural areas have access to high-speed internet and are therefore no longer being left behind from our modern economy and educational system. We need to make sure that we're not thinking about 2016 or 1996 or 1976. We need to be thinking about 20 years from now, not looking backwards, and building the modern infrastructure required to have a modern, thriving economy. And that's all doable, but it's not typically been done by a backward-looking political process.